Hey, what's going on, friends and family? My name is Skylent, and today we're going to be talking about the best looking new MMO. Now, I just want to apologize real quick because I actually was going to upload this as a two-part series thing, whatever, I guess. I was just going to show the trailers because I meant like best looking graphically, and I literally can't add anything to that. But apparently you guys said that I can. You said, Sky, you really can. We sub for your voice. We sub for your commentary. It doesn't matter if it's pointless. We watch your rants too, and those are shitposts. So please, Sky, do this for us. And so, okay, I privated those. I'm going to re-upload, and now here's my voice. You guys asked for it, and well, even though the channel is called Skylent, we're a community. That's what we do. You're the friends and family. And so, yeah, you're right. I owe it to the Patreons. I owe it to the donators. I owe it to you guys who subscribe and have been watching for so long. So let's get into it, yeah? Here's my thoughts and feelings, as light and pointless as they might be, for the best new, best looking MMO. So the first MMO that I want to talk about is going to come from a creator of Firefall, a game that I really liked and I thought had some really interesting stylistic and mechanical choices. But this game's called Ember. So Firefall is completely dead, but Ember is taking some of those concepts and going like crazy bananas with them. So the frames are now kind of like bigger, more larger. I can't say quite giant, but more or less, they're big ass freaking mechs. So we're going to be jumping into these giant frames and fighting. Well, instead of hordes of little insect monster things, we're fighting kaiju. Like, legitimately, we are now fighting big-ass monsters. And that's supposed to be the core concept of the game. Now, that's something that really excites me, because that's actually something that I feel is missing in a lot of MMOs, is big, massive players of, a number of players fighting big, massive monsters. It's pretty rare. Guild Wars 2 kind of does it to an extent, but Ember, I'm putting it for a best looking here. Not just, this isn't a list of just mechanics, like games that I think are going to be good. This is graphically. So this looks like genuinely, I know we don't see much, which is why it's lower on the list, but it genuinely seems like it's going to be a very stylized and very like fidelity game. It looks like it's going to be fine. I know it's super early, low on the list, but then, look at the art. You see the engine it's running in. I'm just going to go ahead and give it the benefit of the doubt. That's what this list is all about. Ember coming in number 10. Number 9, Chronicles of Elyria, or Illyria. Sure, I get it wrong every time I think. Now, some of you guys, last time I uploaded this video, said that this game did look bad in some ways. I think it's because it's earlier, in development. But this is a game that's going for a more down-to-earth and realistic approach. So I think for what it's trying to do, it actually looks good. And I'm comparing this to a lot of survival games where they can have this sort of appearance to it as well. Like, I know it's rough around the edges, but you have to also consider what it is attempting to do. It's not cartoon, it's not stylized. And I mean, to an extent, because of that, it is actually lower on the list. But because it's trying to be realistic, I think that for this kind of game, it actually does look kind of good. Remember, survival game, but that as like an MMO proper, right? It's a down-to-earth, low fantasy. I know there is fantasy. I don't know actually if it is high fantasy, but it just seems like it's trying to take, that more gritty approach to everything. And that's, of course, the aesthetics, the mechanics. I think Chronicles of Elyria should be a good-looking game when it finishes. Of course, it could just go all awry. It could never improve. It could just be a bunch of stock assets thrown in. Who knows? But as of right now, I'm pretty hopeful for this game. By the way, if you don't know, the sort of gimmick of this game is that you do have a life system, sort of. So once you kind of run through a certain number of lives with your character actually does age over time. And then you have to, it dies. And you get a new character. And there's going to be like roles. Like one player can even be like a king. You might even be like a servant of some kind. Like there's different roles. There's a lot of different ways to play the game. So it's definitely going to be more focused on that community. Again, down-to-earth gameplay, maybe even politics, debatably. So the graphics hopefully will represent that and try to be as immersive as possible. Yeah. Number 8, I've got Worlds Adrift. Worlds Adrift is a game that's already playable, but it's in early access, and in my opinion, I think it's got a long way to go. I mean, not a long way to go, like it has to go a long way. Like, it's probably an interesting game now, but what I'm saying is that it can go so much further. Now, this is a stylized, very cartoon, and almost simple game to look at. So in some ways, it has to be lower on the list because, fidelity. But in terms of stylization, I think it's pretty good. But also, you have to consider what kind of game this is. This is kind of a Minecraft-y game where you can actually make islands. They actually have an island creator, which is pretty interesting. They also have the ship builder. So, like, that's the main gimmick of the game, is you're making these giant CG ships. They're basically floating islands themselves, like how big they can get, and you're gonna man these with players. Also grappling hooks. I'm just throwing that out there. I mean, it's kind of irrelevant, but freaking grappling hooks, guys. Anyways, okay, so you're making, you know, these ships block by block, piece by piece. The islands also can be, I believe they're procedurally generated in some instances, or if all instances, I don't know. I need to get into this game myself, so if this video does good, I'm buying into Worlds Adrift and I'll be playing it. But as of right now, just in terms of appearance, for what kind of game it is, like a Minecrafty kind of game, it's really cool to see one that's not just blocks, and one that is trying to be a little bit more sincere with like actual shapes and colors, and, you know, making it a little bit more core or hardcore with the you know, the ships and the steampunkiness. I kind of like that. It has a little bit more flavor. That's why it's on the list. And next up, we got Crowfall, a game that, you know, I've been hit or miss here for some time. I think Crowfall is, it was supposed to release already, but it's just taking a little bit longer to get the game fully fleshed out, and that's okay, I guess. You know, if it's going to take forever, fine. You know, as long as that day one, we could jump in, it's fully featured, you know, it runs good, looks good. But I'm just saying, you know, from the very first trailer from back in the day, it actually did look good. I like the stylization. It kind of reminded me of maybe a more chunky League of Legends, and in a lot of ways it was directly inspired by MOBA gameplay, but now it's going to be kind of changed and shifted. Yeah, you know, the development's taken a while, but graphically, I think it looks really good. Also to consider, there is supposed to be voxel destruction, and to an extent, you do have a kind of island creator with your eternal kingdom kind of thing. I don't know, that has to be explored literally whenever I get into the game myself. Again, if this video does well, I'll buy into it. But Crowfall is a game that I think could look really spectacular, really graphically colorful. You know, it's not that super high fidelity. It's got that very, you know, Albion, League of Legends, cartoony Fortnite. You know, a lot of games are using this art style, but I think it's timeless. And I think at the same time, though, it does kind of go a little bit extra with some of its aesthetic design. Also, the main gimmick of Crowfall is that it's played in campaigns. So you have your Eternal Kingdom, which is kind of, I guess you could say almost like your Farmville kind of experience. That's really oversimplification, and then you go into these multiple campaign maps. So think like something maybe like Guild Wars 2, how there's different instances, different islands you can portal to. Think of that, except they're totally different, literally like month-long campaigns that can eventually end, and then, yeah, so you jump in, it's PvEVP, and it's going ham. So yeah, think like ESO or Guild Wars 2, World versus World versus World, except more factions than that. It's guild-based. One is even free-for-all. Sometimes you jump in there, and there is like all these objectives, all these little mini things that you can do, and yeah, I mean, it's basically that idea, the PvP in those games that they attempted and that they kind of lightly play with, but that's the whole game of Crowfall. Lots of little campaigns running at the same time. They might have different mutators and restrictions, like only certain races or classes can join potentially. A lot of weird stuff can happen, and because of all that variety and gameplay at any one moment, I think that this game is gonna look pretty cool. Alright guys, next up we have Identity. Identity is a game I don't know too much about. I know it was kickstarted and I've been weary of it. A little bit of drama here and there with Identity, but I think for what it's trying to do, this, for the same reason that Chronicles of Elyria was on the list, you know, that whole down-to-earth thing, Identity is literally like that. I think face value, it actually looks really good, and it kind of needs to for the immersion factor, but that's like what it's trying to do, is like, it's literally just an immersive, like modern, postmodern type of game. So you want to jump in and you kind of want to have that role-play Grand Theft Auto experience, but as an actual MMO, and hopefully the social features are going to be there and everything. But that's pretty much it, guys. Identity is like that MMO that a lot of people suggest on forums, and it's like, oh man, wouldn't it be cool if there was like a, you know, a super like kind of realistic game set in modern times, and you know, like, hey, it's finally getting made. Apparently, it was kickstarted and people are jamming to it or attempting to. There's a little bit of drama there, here and there, and if you want to comment on it in the comments below, absolutely do that. But I'm just saying, you know, keeping the hype alive here. Identity still, you know, to me, graphically, I think it looks good. Okay, guys, halfway on the list, we have Ashes of Creation. Ashes of Creation, I think it looks good. Now, it's not super high on the list, even though I think technically in some ways it does look really good, and that's because some videos kind of chunked a little bit. You know, there's some hit or miss. Similar for Crowfall. I would have put Crowfall higher, but, you know, just some footage they put out, there's some things that sometimes didn't look so good and sometimes looks amazing. But in terms of like their art and what they're trying to do and the graphical style, I think it's gonna look nice. It kind of has like this very Unreal look to it, because at the moment it's using very stock Unreal stuffs. Like a lot of it, you know, it's basically, it looks like they went to the Unreal store, slapped up a bunch of assets, but also a lot of post-processing, a lot of effects look very Unreal. So in terms of stylization, I know what they want to aim for, but at the moment, it just kind of looks stock. So it's not super high on the list because of that, but potentially this game is going to look amazing, and I still have a lot of high hopes for it, because a game that's given this much money, it's almost like impossible to fail, at least, right? It might take a long time to come out, it might not be the game we want, but to fail with that much money, that would be monumental, that would be epic. But so Ashes of Creation, pretty sure it's going to turn into something, and I'm pretty sure it's not going to look half bad. So halfway on the list, guys. And if you don't know about Ashes of Creation, you've been living under a rock. Pretty sure everyone does. But basically, the main gimmick is that it's supposed to be this big open world sandbox game. You're supposed to be able to own cities and even level them up with tiers. Monsters are supposed to siege those cities, and there's supposed to be this weird dynamic like ecosystem and weird guild play with the cities that I can't wait to jump into. But yeah, in terms of graphics and appearance, you know, looking pretty okay. Alright guys, next up we have Air, Ascent Infinite Realm. Yes, I dared to put it higher than Ashes of Creation, even though this is also very similar to some things we've seen. But here's the thing, okay guys, I know this is from two teams that could have you guys weary about optimization. I believe it's published from the Black Desert dudes, or inversely, it's from the Terra guys, but basically I definitely see some assets and things being pulled from both games, poured into here. Also, the trailer has a little bit of worry of optimization, and you know, probably it's not gonna run that great. But in terms of graphics and style, for what it's trying to do, giant steampunk, very fantasy, very ornate steampunk. Keep that in mind, where World's Drift was the opposite, very clean. Yeah, no, Air is like really intense with its stylization, really intense with like the ornate stuff. It's pretty ridiculous. So very regal here. This game has a lot of fancy stuff going on. So maybe it's not going to run that great, but we'll see when we jump into the game very soon. Hopefully I can jump into it. But yeah, it's going to be steampunk, lots of explosive cannons firing off everywhere, you know, insane graphics, insane, you know, spell effects. And you should come to expect that from at least the guys from Terra, right? So yeah, bump that up a notch, you know, a new generation of MMO. I'm excited for it. Hopefully they do focus on like guild play and actual massive combat, you know, giant air battles, ship to ship guild fights. I really hope we can get that. And if the graphics can actually run just a little bit, you know, 30 FPS please, you know, in these giant fights with all these graphics going on, then it would totally deserve this spot so high up here at number 4. All right, guys, number 3, and this might be a little bit heated and debated, but I'm putting Lineage, the new Lineage, a Project TL. Now, I just think that the newest trailer that they put out for this looks really good. Now, actually, when I did my first, like, look, I did a reaction video, I was like, there's no way that this is gonna look like this in-game. I think it is possible, though, and if it does actually look like that in-game, and we actually have like the dynamic camera that can kind of move around, and it's more cinematic, which we see with the competitor Lost Ark, and we see these big explosive battles and, you know, massive numbers on screen and things like that. I think we can have fun with this game, and it is an action RPG, and generally you do have lots of enemies on screen, you do have big explosive attacks, and this game just looks really good though. Like, how's it gonna run like that? Maybe it can, you know, new generation possible. But this game has gone through some shifts, you know, some twists and turns. Like, it's literally a totally new name. Now it's Project TL, right? So it's not number 1. I know a lot of people are really looking forward to it, but in terms of just graphics and in terms of appearance, I actually really like its competitor more. I think it's way more stylized, and I think this is gonna look good. And of course, this is debated because it's isometric mostly. You know, it's easy to make a game look, you know, cool like that. And I totally agree. That's for sure, definitely. But, you know, it's still my opinion. I'm just slapping it at number 3. And now number 2, I'm gonna put Star Citizen. And, like, this is kind of a no-brainer, but at the same time, some people will be like, well, where's the style, where's the feel? The thing is that there's actually not that many sci-fi MMO that really put you in the first person and really look good in all accounts. PlanetSide 2 look actually pretty good in alpha with its lighting and everything, but it kind of looks really cheesy and stuff. Star Citizen is looking to be very sincere. Again, why I put Chronicles of Elyria and Identity on this list here, Star Citizen is trying to be extremely, okay, this is weird because it's a space game, but down to earth. It's trying to be realistic. It's trying to be actually sci-fi. It's trying to have all the little details that make sense. And it's not just trying to be uproarious for the sake of being uproarious like Ember is. It's trying to be like the sci-fi MMO and potentially the MMO. But at the moment, it's really just kind of a tech demo. You know, you have the ships, you have the lighting engines, or the different physics engines and the little tiny mechanics that they're slowly adding into the game. It's very similar to Ashes of Creation. This is a game that's been so funded that it just can't fail. At the very bare minimum, it's going to be something, some sort of prototype demo-y thing that is going to look freaking gorgeous. And at the best case scenario, it's going to be a massive MMO that also has a single-player game being exported next to it. So I think Star Citizen is going to do well eventually, but I think that because it's consistently getting so much money, that means they can consistently add so much more to the game, which means it's going to take consistently more time to actually produce it. So it's at number 2. Because, you know, it is more sci-fi. We have seen lots of movies. We have seen some games that have had this aesthetic before. So to an extent, I'm going to have to revoke its number 1 place, also because it's so far off on the horizon, to another game that's maybe a little bit closer, that some people can play, that also has more of a interesting stylistic crunch, a bite to it, in my opinion. Okay, so number 1 is Lost Ark. Now I'm doing this, and this whole list is based on the trailers that have already been published so far. That's why I'm just showing you trailer footage. You know, I don't have access to these games. I don't know, peel some eyeballs on the Patreon. Maybe I could buy into them. But Lost Ark opened up for the West, or I think globally, really, with this big, like, freaking, like, 12-minute trailer, maybe even longer, of just showing off, like everything, the whole game. Like, they showed off the classes, they showed off like the world, they had the camera flowing all around the bosses, the animations, and even since that trailer, which blew everyone's freaking eyeballs away, we've actually had increased animations. They've even like really subtly been tuning the textures all the way down to like every little thing. They've really been tuning this game. And people who have been playing it, you can actually watch those videos and you can really see the upgrades over time. Now, Lost Ark might take forever to come to the West, like Blade and Soul did. Blade and Soul was a gorgeous game as well, and even when it came to the West like 6 years later, it's still one of the most gorgeous games actually now. So Lost Ark, whenever we do get it in the West, I'm sure it's still going to be looking amazing. But I'm really having it so high on this list because of the type of trailers that they've shown. It's been so honest, I feel. Like, they just show, hey, here's this, like, you know, this dungeon, you're running up, you're doing all this dynamic stuff, and even though the camera can be locked, isometric, right? There's just so much stuff happening on screen. There's so much awesome, really interesting, really weird, from like wuxia to like berserk style, you know, combat and mechanics and the graphics and the, you know, I'm just turning into a little kid. I'm kind of forgetting my jargon here for video game design, but like basically it just looks bombastic as shit. It looks awesome. And in an action RPG, you want that really crunchy, you know, you want to jump in Path of Exile, have the icicles flying everywhere, Diablo, like freaking paladin hammers swinging around. You want all those really cool effects, but you also want them to hit and crunch, and Lost Ark seems to have that. It's got some really weighty looking combat, really weighty looking monsters, and it just feels good. Like I'm literally not even playing the game, and yet I feel the game because of its art direction. So because of that, mainly because it's art direction, but also extremely high fidelity, Lost Ark, man, I gotta put it at my number 1. So guys, that's going to be it for my top 10 best looking new MMO. Now, it is based on graphics, and like I said, like I didn't add anything to this video. In fact, I probably detracted, because the last time I had the trailers just, you know, from the Kickstarter stuffs, and the developers were saying what the games were about. So they were probably more educated about the game they're making than me, but you guys asked for it, so I delivered. And if you guys have any other video ideas that you want me to do, that's what I'll do. Again, the channel is called Skylent Games, but we're the friends and family together. We're a community. So, you know, let's hang out. Join the Discord and let me know what you guys want to see covered, what you want me to review. I need to know ahead of time so I can actually play these games, because doing top 10s actually takes a lot of research, a lot of time, and maybe I can shit something out like this every once in a while, but, you know, I need you guys, actually, to make this whole magical thing happen. So thanks for watching, guys. I definitely applaud for the Patreons, the donators, and the people who like, subscribe, and, you know, the call to action, all the YouTube stuff, and who are just here, hanging out every day. Thanks so much, guys. Much love, and I hope you have fun. And I'll see you in the next one.